joined by my dear friend today, Gideon Nielsen. He is on a phenomenal journey, which he's going to share with you. But it's hardly surprising that he's on this journey given the type of life he's had. He's on the road for 10 and a half years. He has traveled an awful lot. He wrote a book several years ago called Your Unique Journey, which we, of course, will talk about. And now he is on a pilgrimage for 5 months. 5 months, I kid you not, with a back.
Welcome to the Boss Ladies Mindset channel, powered by Crown for Success, the largest women's empowerment network for soulful CEOs on social media. We are a coaching business that mentors and motivates women to reach their highest potential in business and mindset mastery. Each one of our episodes will share valuable tips, resources, interviews, and empowering information that will help boss ladies design a life and business they're crazy as fuck about.
And welcome to yet another episode. In fact, a very special impromptu episode of Be Free, Be Fun, Be Fearless. I am Dr. Rana El-Falaki, and I am utterly privileged and honored to be joined by my dear friend today, Gideon Nielsen. Now, Gideon and I have not been friends for very long, but I think we've become very, very good friends, and you'll know why when we start talking to him. He is on a phenomenal journey, which he's going to share with you, but it's hardly surprising that he's on this journey given the type of life he's had. He has been almost, maybe not quite accurately, but he'll correct me if needs be, on the road for 10 and a half years. He has traveled an awful lot. He has trekked Portugal, he's trekked Spain, he's lived in so many different countries. He wrote a book several years ago called Your Unique Journey, which we, of course, will talk about. And now he is on a pilgrimage for 5 months. 5 months, I kid you not, with a backpack. Started in June, trekking from Denmark to Spain, to Santiago on the Camino trail. So with no further ado, so he can correct me if I got any of that wrong. Hi, Gideon.
Hello. How are you?
Did I get any of that wrong, or were we more or less on track?
Yeah, it's all good. Of course, it can be more fully explained, I guess, but yeah.
Yes, well, that's where you come in, my friend. That's where you come in. That is where you come in. So you're on the Camino. I mean, most people don't even know what this journey is, what it's about, how it started, where it goes to. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so like the Camino itself, I mean, Santiago is sort of the capital of pilgrimages in Europe now. I mean, before it was Rome. And of course, you can still go to Rome, but Santiago in northwest of Spain is sort of the main place for pilgrims. And you can start from anywhere in Europe.
So Catholic?
Because
Rome is for Catholics, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I actually don't know that part. If it's it's called the Way of Saint James, and Saint James is it's Apostle of Jesus. That's the story, and whatever that means in terms of if it's Catholic or not, I don't know. But you can start from anywhere. You can also start from England. Actually, you can also start from anywhere, and from Norway, Denmark, Germany, any country, and there's paths where the Camino shell, it's a yellow marker, is sort of the marking the road from where you can start. I mean, from many places in Europe, and then you follow that to Santiago. So, and the reason for the shell is that back in the day, at least what I'm told or what I've understood until now, is that back in the day, I mean, way back when you thought the earth was flat and you would fall off, you actually when you went to the ocean, you brought back a shell to prove that you were there, that you were at the ocean or at the end of the world. Because, so to clarify, Santiago is sort of the main stop. That's the main destination. But for some pilgrims, they continue out to the ocean and to Finisterre, which is called the end of the earth. So when you get out there, you can literally not walk further. But then you bring a shell or pick up shells from the beach, and you bring that back as sort of the proof that you were there. So
And I can see this like smile starting to form on your face when you say this Finisterre and it being the end of the earth. So I know you and I have had conversations about this. You've been there before. It's a very, very special place.
Yeah, I've been there twice. Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite places in the world. It means more to a pilgrim that maybe anybody would really understand if you haven't walked, because it is really where you can either finish in Finisterre or Muxia. So there's two spots, and it sort of depends on the feeling that you have as a pilgrim when you end, how it feels or resonates with you, that where you end. But for many, Finisterre is definitely one of the main places where most people go to or stop. There's a 0.0 marker. There might be one in Muxia as well, actually, but it's at the end of that's where the lighthouse is. So you walk into Finisterre, and then you walk through, or sort of on the outskirts of the town, and then you walk towards the lighthouse, which is like a mile out or something. And there's a 0.0 kilometer marker, and obviously you have been looking at markers for, it could be 2 weeks or a month or 3 months, and in my case it'll be about 5 months. And when you see that marker, it obviously just tells you that it's over now. There's no more. Of course, many people can walk back and they can continue on if they want to, but it is really the conclusion to a really long journey. That this is the end. There's no more to do, no more. The mission has been accomplished, kind of thing, and it is just special. And I think with a really beautiful journey, it's important that there's an ending. It is really important that there is some kind of conclusion. And when the weather is beautiful, it is one of the most special places to end. It's such a journey. So, yeah.
You can taste it, you can smell it, it's there, it's waiting.
When I think about it now, and when I thought about it, because I started June 22nd, I started this crazy journey, and it's been a calling, and I can go into that just after this and about how that sort of started. But when I thought about Finisterre and I have a shell with me where it says Denmark to Paris to Santiago, and I have a sort of a vision, or clear, what do you say, like a picture in my mind that I want a picture with me and that shell and that 0.0 marker. That's what I have in my head. But I feel pulled towards that place. But when I think about that place and thinking about ending there and really looking back and say that I did it, it's really, it becomes very quickly emotional, because it's just I don't know what it is. It's just really such a special place. It keeps me sort of. It doesn't keep me keep the journey alive, but it keeps me sort of really. What do you say? Keeps me emotionally. What do I say, tender or something? I don't know, but it's just really, it makes me, it really is tender to my heart, that place. It's really, yeah. What else can I say? It's just special.
I guess, well, it keeps you heart focused when all the rationale in your head is telling you you're in pain, you're tired. Yeah. We have a phrase a British phrase that kind of says it tugs on your heartstrings. That makes sense?
Yeah, it's the times I've talked about it, it's very easy to be emotional.
I'm going to talk about the practicalities, and I want to get back to very much about why on earth you're on this 5 months journey. Yeah. But also, of course, I know you shared with me that in your 20s you started this journeying, and I'd really love our listeners or our viewers to understand a little bit about you and where you're coming from. What led you? What guides you?
In terms of my travels, like why that started, or
travels, and of course I know who you are. You from a very young age you started on the path of self-help or self-improvement or raising your consciousness, and not a lot of people at that age are even aware of that, and yet you were. So
yeah, that was yes, my point is that like some people, they play basketball and they have a talent for that, or play soccer, or they write, or they do something. And I think I've have had a talent for being sensitive to what's true or not. Because I come from a very religious background. My family come from a very religious background. And even though my parents believe in the same thing, my dad's side of the family was very black and white in terms of how they saw everything. And they didn't, it's first in my early 30s that or a few years ago, when I realized that I had not been seen for who I am by my grandparents on my dad's side. And I've always felt not being able to, or not felt seen by them, or felt grown up, or felt like I was seen by as who I was. So I think throughout my life, I started asking questions when I was 5, and I think that I've always been aware of that there was something wrong in terms of how things are in the world, and why am I as a kid, as a free-spirited whatever, why am I told to do certain things that I don't want to do? And of course, as a parent, there is certain things that we have to do, of course. But when it comes to really important things and really like life affirming things like school and many other things, it just became apparent that my mom and dad didn't have the answer when I asked questions. It was just how it was, how it was meant to be, or how it was, this is just how it is, was the answer often, when I asked about why should I go to school and work and all these things. So I think I've just had a knack for asking questions, because I sensed that there was something in me that wanted more, that wanted to be free, wanted to be live truth, in some ways. And when I look back at my youth, I can see that I came from ignorance in some sense, a lot of ignorance in terms of all this religious stuff that was very unhealthy, very unhealthy in terms of that rules and dogma and what's wrong and right. And and when I look back, I'm also like, I think I was very fearful, fear of not being good enough and all these things. And I think it just gradually progressed towards wanting to be free and living differently, always pursuing that sort of freedom and truth, the truth in that, and who am I, and sort of constantly searching for the truth, really, of who I am. I think that's the short version of what it is.
So I'm hearing you say, even from a young age, you perhaps felt different. You were questioning. You wanted to challenge people. You had a quest for the truth, and people couldn't answer you, and that probably then propelled you and fed you even more to want to challenge them, or to perhaps will rise up and want to be free. And as you continue to get older and ask more and more questions, people just kept trying to shut you down until you were old enough to go on your own personal quest. How true is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I realize now, of course, when you walk far, you think a lot, and you're faced with yourself every day. And I'm also not speaking to my parents right now, not because I don't like them or whatever. I mean, this has just been the last few weeks. But I just feel like there's something I need to work out for myself in terms of my relationship to them. Because I know I've been very codependent, I became very codependent on my parents. And I think I've shared way too much with them in my life in terms of, because it always boiled down to not being good enough and being, so I always had to be honest, and of course you have to be honest, but like I don't think I have taken it seriously that there is a limit to what I should share, or, a boundary of some sorts. And I think that I just wanted to really figure out my own self so much that I know what boundaries I have for things, with them, with anybody. Because it was very rule based with my parents often, at least when I was really young. I continuously asked about why we were supposed to go to church, because I didn't get it. I didn't get why I was supposed to go there when I didn't want to, and it didn't make any sense for me. So fortunately, they began to listen, because they were also in their own development. They actually moved from Copenhagen, where I was born, the capital of Denmark, to the middle part of the country, to actually take a step away from my dad's parents and that whole seriousness around that. So we are a tight family in the sense that we are continuously growing together. I think I don't know if that answered your question, but there's many answers, I think. But yes, there's definitely the whole thing about needing to have approval to do something, when you were small, and really just want to break through that whole limited way of, I think that drove me to when I started traveling was I actually left to go to Australia my first year, and I left saying I don't know if I'll come back, and I really meant it.
This is when you were age 24.
When I left, the 15th February 2010. Okay. My dad sort of knew it, when we said goodbye. I mean, I left to leave. I mean,
But were you searching for something, still on this quest for truth, or were you running away?
Yeah, that's the thing. I was running away partially. It was both things. I was running away, but I also wanted to find myself, or renew myself, or live differently, is how I put it. Because I was constantly up against this not being good enough, I think to some degree, or feeling. And also, when asking questions, I didn't just ask questions about church. I mean, it was everything in our society. Because I'm very intuitive. I think I'm I don't know. It's just been, I haven't really, it's just there, it's just what I do. I mean, I just, I can't really help it. And I think it just drove me to both realizing that what the hell is happening, what's going on in this world? Why do I have to work 8 to 4? Why do I have to live by the norms? Why do I have to do these things? And I think it was just slowly a progression of realizing that I can actually live how I want to, but trying to have to figure out why. And I think the Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Work Week, there was a question in that book that said, what is the worst thing that can happen? And I had a friend who just was, he was my boss and friend, and he got fired from the job that we working on together, or we had the same job or same place. And as he left to go to Australia, and there was just things that began to happen in terms of that, what is there to lose? I mean, so I both went towards something new that was something that made sense to me, and then I definitely ran away as well. I remember him asking me, why did you go to Australia? That's like the furthest away you can get pretty much from Denmark. So it's been sort of a ongoing thing, those two, I think, yeah.
And you didn't find yourself in Australia because you're still walking.
I think, of course, finding yourself is one thing, but I think I just wanted to live differently, most of all. I think I just wanted to travel. I wanted to be and feel free. I wanted to experience that you could live differently, that I could actually live from a computer or just experience new things that didn't feel like I was in this this box of a society, so I mean, within 4 or 5 weeks, I got an option to just live and work at a farm, where I was pretty much alone the whole time, unless I would on the weekends, so all of a sudden I began to live differently because I pursued it, and then things just started to happen. And that's the beauty of leaping, it's that things will catch you. So, and I think that was early on. We talked about, me and my friend Stefan there and me, we often talked about that, having faith in the unknown, is because when you travel and when you live sort of in that on the edge kind of life, and you just need to understand that. You need to understand that things will work out and they'll be okay. And when you get used to that idea, life becomes fun. So it helped, and it was a good start. It was one of the best years of my life, that first year. So
it's very much part of that surrendering process, of being able to trust, being able to be prepared to take a leap of faith, and know that back to that question, what's the worst that can happen? Actually, that it will all work out. And this idea of perfection not necessarily being something that's all pretty and something that's all happy, but it's something that can still be perfect for you because it works out the way it's meant to. And that may be that you go down a path of pain or distress or hardship, but you come back to the road of realizing that makes you who you are today.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a pioneer in my family. No one has lived the way I have. Like both sides, all cousins, no one has lived the way I have. And I don't know if some of my cousins have traveled, but I definitely broke out of, the norm way of thinking, and I had to fight my parents a lot, especially my dad. He was very conformed in terms of his thinking. I think my mom was a bit more open in the sense that, to a degree, but there was a point in time where that was in 2009. Yeah, I had been at a seminar, like a full day seminar, and after that day, or after that weekend, I guess it was a Saturday, and then I went to work on a Monday, and everything just shifted when I sat down. It was like this, a paradigm shift where I just sat down and I was just totally aware of everything in a way that I had never experienced before. It was just like I was totally amazingly present, and it was like when people talked to me, it was like I heard it before they said it. It was really odd. And I just went over to my friend Stefan there, and I said, can we talk? And then we sat and got into a room, and we just sat there and talked. And he just said, just go home and walk and just write it down for a couple of days. And later that year, there was I don't know how I got connected to that actually right now, but there was somebody who offered that you could pay some money and you could write a story in a book series, and that would become a bestseller. And it would become a bestseller because the authors would have 2 packages of buying several hundred books or whatever, and then it would be a bestseller right away, obviously. But it was sort of a cool thing, because I like writing. It was an experience that really changed something in me. And yeah, being published and having a book that you could start selling or whatever, it made sense to me. But when I shared that with my dad, he got really upset with me. He got really upset and he couldn't understand it. He just said, "Oh, you just want to be famous, whatnot." And I got really upset and I left. I went home every Sunday, and it's something that I've thought about actually a lot these days, because I've dealt with some unhealthy relationships over the years. And I realized that the first maybe unhealthy relationship I had, at least partially with my parents, was the fact that I was growing so much. When I left them, or lived by myself, I started this entire. I could really start living freely and more. I could start actually following up on my own questions, like and start do stuff. And I realized every time I went home on Sundays for dinner and stuff, I realized that I was nervous. I was nervous and fearful of what would they think now with all these ideas that I could bring home today. because I was really rushing out there, like not rushing, but like I was just, you know, one way street of just growing, you know, there was so much happening. And I realized that I was afraid of sharing that with them.
So
every time. And
Gideon, how much of that did you hide? How much of yourself did you hide when you would go back on the?
Yeah. I think I don't know if I hid it, because I don't think I hid it, but I was afraid of sharing, you know. But I mean, if my parents at that time, if they turned their back on me for being who I was, I don't think I would have stopped, you know. Of course, it wouldn't have been healthy, or it wouldn't have been fun, or whatever. But there was times where my parents just didn't know what to do with me. I think they just didn't have any clue of what was okay, and sometimes I think they made decisions that were not very good because they were afraid too. They were, you know, I don't know why actually sometimes, but they didn't. They came from such a different background, you know, and I was coming with this whole new world, I guess. So I think, yeah, it was difficult, but it was also just part of my journey, you know, of growing and yeah.
And I think it's really important to share it, because then other people listening will recognize that they're not alone, you know, and they can take a lot of comfort in that. You know, I have a similar story of feeling unseen.
Yeah.
I didn't belong. People didn't get me. You know, I was a very sociable person on the surface, but within myself, I felt alone. And you know, as we grow up, we wear so many different masks that hide who we truly are, and we show different faces to different people, and we sometimes can't even engage with who we are deep down. And it's not unusual for conscious people, light workers, whatever you want to call us, to have that sense of feeling like they don't belong. And they can have a really, your energy level is so high that you can have a really hard time grounding yourself and being comfortable in this world until you peel off the layers. And again, very similarly to you, and we're going to get onto your relationships, you know, and I shared a brief history of my disastrous relationships in my video. I'm quite open about it, because, you know, I just ended up in one emotionally abusive relationship after the next until I learned to break the pattern. And it very much came exactly as you said, from this feeling of not being good enough. And that doesn't necessarily come from people putting you down all the time. I don't know about you, but my parents never put me down. They always believed that I had the ability to do whatever I wanted, but yet somehow there was this belief in me that never ever felt good enough, and it led me down a difficult path. So where did your not feeling good enough come from? You said it's come from your parents, but were they putting you down, or it was just a feeling you had?
No, they were not putting me down, but I think it was, my dad was very serious. I mean, he was very serious because he came from seriousness, and his parents were so serious about their, what I would say, crazy beliefs that things were one way, you know. And I think that my dad just had that with him, you know. It took him in his 30s. That's when he really had a shift, which was that he realized that he needed to let go of his entire identity. You know, he realized that what he came from just didn't make sense anymore. You know, he had to really let go of it. And obviously that was a big transition for him. And I think it was first after that maybe that seriousness sort of left a bit. And I knew must have been early, just before my teens maybe, or around there. So I don't think that they didn't really put me down, but my dad was just definitely very serious sometimes, or often, because of all this stuff, religious stuff, and also just the religious stuff in general was very like, if you don't do this, you go to hell. If you don't do this, you're not good enough. I mean, I think it was very ingrained. Yeah, in that whole energy. Yeah, of course, a lot of things have, I don't know if they're let go of yet, but they have definitely surfaced so much this last period of time that I have realized some stuff that seems to make sense. So yeah.
And so it wasn't your truth, and you're still on a journey to find your truth. So fast forward, you went to Australia. You didn't come home, did you? You traveled and lived in several different countries throughout that 10-year period?
I went back for some weeks after that year, and then I left again, and then it was sort of back and forth for several years. Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
the life of a nomad, where the people would think, oh, a traditional life is, then you meet somebody and you settle down and you make friends, but you're constantly moving. So what happens with your relationships, both friends and personal? Or do you feel free?
Yeah, I think sometimes I've definitely been in the gutter of emotions in terms of feeling that I have nothing, because I have lived this way. Because it's very easy to feel alone. It's easy to think about that. Yes, I don't have a tight knit circle of friends, and neighbors and all this stuff. But I have a lot of friends. They're just not around me all the time, and that's one of the choices, I guess, of living this way, or one of the what do you say? Outcomes. What do you say? I mean, my closest friends, I will always be around or talk to. I talk to one of my best friends, about every week. So, but yeah, that's also been a journey in itself, because I also realized when I started to grow a lot that not many were like me or whatever. Especially when in the workplace, it didn't seem. It was only Stefan, my boss, there. We could sort of talk about these things. And he, of course, traveled, and he lives in Australia now because that's what he wanted to do and all that. So, but I realized that when I began to, it was actually in network marketing, that type of business that I got into, which was not really healthy in terms of business wise. I don't think it's a good business really. But what I began to understand was that the people who were doing this, they were reading books about how to become better, or how to, improve themselves in whatever way. Their bookshelves were full of self-help books and whatnot, and that had piqued my interest, because, I mean, if you want to become better, you need to do something. You need to study. You need to realize who the hell you are, So that was sort of the starting point, I think, actually, for really just sort of waking up a bit, from not because I didn't ask questions, but it was sort of like I began to mingle with people who wanted more out of life. So you can always question about what the reasons they're doing it, or the business models they're doing it by, or whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. It's just a matter of that these people, they wanted to improve themselves. And I think that just started the journey of me, beginning to read and study, and more concretely sort of, study. So I think, that's when it started. And then that took a few years, and then all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to go travel now. And in short, the first year was in Australia, and then I began to go to workshops and stuff. I began to feel in October of that year, 2010, I began to realize that, okay, I'm ready now. I can do what I want now. I began to sort of feel confident, and the reason why I left was to sort of find myself, or gather myself, at least to be able to make decisions for me. And then I began to think about, okay, I want to establish myself in this environment of, personal development and spiritual development. So that was my decision. And then I started to just go to workshops. and I went from Australia and all the way to Canada. That's another story, but that was to get a working holiday visa started in Canada. But then I went to Costa Rica and many workshops in the US over the next few months. I spent about a year and a half, a lot in the US. And then, I think the next country was Spain for about a year after the Camino. And then I was in Portugal for another Camino, went to New Zealand. And then I lived in Switzerland for a year and a half. And after that, what was that? I actually went back to Denmark for a while. And then I went to India and back to Denmark, and
So gradually, obviously, you've gone on this journey. You've broken free. You're in search of a quest. You're surrounded by people thinking, okay, actually, there's something to learn. So you start on all the self-improvement stuff, and start learning. And by the sounds of it, starting to grow your confidence and starting to go on courses and learn more and be more. So presumably breaking free more and more. And then what I'm hearing is that perhaps in that process, as well as learning about yourself, maybe you were starting to gather a little bit of your tribe around you, some more like-minded individuals.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, definitely. And I think that was sort of, that was what I began to understand, that when I went to workshops and all that stuff, I was the youngest in the crowd all the time, but I was like-minded with people who were twice my age or more, Before I actually started traveling, I went to get certified as a coach with the speaker that I went to that, after that, and, shifted a lot of things. And it was not really the certification that really, I think that was kind of a bit of BS, to be honest, but the whole experience of being around people who were like me, I guess, and I was this young guy that, I was just searching, and it was just kind of interesting to so naturally being in a crowd of people that I could talk to all the time about myself, about everything was going on, and people who were interested in just growing, and learning and all this. So that was special to just realize, I think. And I think that was the experience that sort of set me off in terms of, okay, I know I can find these people everywhere when I go to workshops and all that. So that was nice. And but I also think I realized that it was sort of, I don't know, limited, but maybe it's just not enough for me, the workshop setting or that stuff. Because I didn't really go to many. I haven't really gone to any workshops really since that time. That was 2011 or something, 12. I haven't really gone to that many, or if any.
So my own experience of workshops is, it's a little bit like the rule book thing, to some extent, because you're listening to somebody. If they're just teaching you a certain thing, then it's their interpretation and it's their way of teaching. And while you can learn and you can grow, there's still to me it feels like there's still a limit there to some extent, because it's someone else's rules. And I think it's only when you take what you learn and you make it your own, and you go on your own journey and continue to evolve, that you really push the boundaries. And you become a leader. You become a leader in your life and a leader in that field, as opposed to a follower. And there's no insult meant to the people who go on the courses who are followers. Sometimes that's all that person needs. But I know from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not, you're like me, you're a push the boundaries type of person. It's not enough for you to follow, because you need to go on your unique journey.
Yeah, I mean, I realized early on that putting speakers and so on up on a pedestal is really a dumb idea. because you get disappointed really fast, and then you begin to judge them for what they teach you or what they don't teach you. And I think a lot of people, because I think we all have a void because of our society. I think there's something it's purposely missing, which is to learn who we are from the get, and no one really teaches us anything. And I think then we look for ways to fill that void, because there's something to fill, and we just don't know what it is, and then we look for that in religion or personal development or yoga, or we look for it anywhere, and I think I realized that a lot of people who's going to workshops, they're looking for that. They're looking to have the speaker fill them up, and I think also a lot of the speakers there live off of that. I realized that putting people up on a pedestal, especially the speakers and all that, is really good or a bad idea. They're having their own life experience, and they're just sharing that. And it's really important to take responsibility for yourself, and it's your own fault if you put them up on a pedestal. You need to take responsibility for your own life. We all should listen and learn from each other, but we shouldn't put anybody on a pedestal. And I think it's very easy when we have a void to fill. There was an experience in Costa Rica where, because this experience, do you know Dan Millman? Dan Millman, he wrote the book The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, one of the best books, I think, out there. And he had this week of transformational experience or vacation, I think, transformational vacation. And at the end, there was a son and mother from Romania or something, and they said at the end of the week, they said, we don't really feel transformed, and it's like, I don't think you get it, so there's a lot of those experiences, but overall, I've have a lot of connections or friends from especially that trip in Costa Rica, but also many others, and of course, it's all worth it. It's just really important to keep yourself in mind and not, take yourself seriously, actually, because I think a lot of people, they just look for the answers and instead of having to do the work. And I did that myself, of course, but I learned.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. So your unique journey, this book that you wrote, mm-hmm. What was that about?
Yeah, so I mean, when I talk about that book, I'm a little. It's not that I'm not proud of having done it, but I also know that it's very early in my life and early in my travels, and I was also at a point where I have not gotten into depth about who I was yet. So while it was truthful, it was also very basic. So the first part of the book is sharing, my story, where I come from and the years up until when I was, at that time, when was I was 28 or something, 27. So the book is, in short, a self-help book, because that was what I was into at that time, and a bit about my story, and then there was, some tools I had learned along the way. But of course, the essence of it is, that we are on this unique journey and so on. And my purpose at that time was to use the book as a sort of as a starting point to start a project called Your Unique Journey as well. But having people share their story and share who they, because just like you do and how like many do in the podcast and whatnot, is that, I think that's why it is interesting. And it doesn't really matter who has the podcast, because usually all conversations are interesting, because it's unique and it's so I think that whole idea made sense to me, that we all have something to share, and this whole idea, the front page of the book is me walking out in the abyss, and that's kind of makes sense in terms of everything I am about. Is this I'm on the road, especially right now, and it's an ongoing thing, and we are having a unique experience, and we can share that. We should share it. So I think, yeah, in short, that's what it's about. But I definitely want to upgrade that.
Well, you
And I
can.
feel I'm beginning to.
It would be perfect if the title is still there, but of course your unique journey is, another however many years on, because the journey never ends. The journey of our life. It's not. We don't get to a destination and think, okay, great, I've made it. Now what? Actually, it's when we decide to get out of our earth suits, as my dear friend Melinda Kapoor says. That's when that's when the journey ends, or the experience on earth ends. But otherwise we keep on traveling, whether we're doing it in the practical sense that you are at the moment with a rucksack and boots, or just living life is a journey.
Yeah, and what I like about, and it's not, I think I'm in a process also where I'm beginning to really appreciate myself, appreciate what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and I really like that I'm literally living my truth, in the sense that I'm living this whole journey thing. I have a logo called the Journey Navigator, and this whole idea of your unique journey and all that stuff. And it's not really the important about the words themselves, but it's just that this is actually truly who I am. I mean, it's really who I am, in the sense that yes, that, I mean, of course, maybe you shouldn't live on the road all the time, but this whole experience of actually living it, and because walking far is a huge metaphor for life. It is the metaphor for life, I'd say, because life has changed, and you realize that when you walk. You go to new places, you leave places, you meet people, you say goodbye. I haven't met many pilgrims yet, but I have. I walked with a woman for 3 days, and as pilgrims you bond really fast. But then there's a time where you need to say goodbye, and that obviously happens more when you meet more down in Spain. But there are so many things that is coming together when in terms of life and walking far, that's I think it's the greatest teacher. Walking long distance, I think it's the greatest teacher that I could have. But I also think that it teaches you everything you need to know about life, because of the challenges, physically, mentally. It goes really. There's nothing you can escape if you walk far.
So you are walking 20 to 30 kilometers a day.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So fast forward to June 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Decision to do this walk from Denmark to Santiago.
Yeah, so June 22nd was the day I started, and 2 weeks before that. So I'd been in a relationship from February until May this year, and that ended. It was the most special experience I've had, but it's also something I realized that I was in a cycle that needed to end. Not because I realized that right then, maybe, or even though I had thought about it a lot, but I was gonna process this breakup, or this ending of this experience, and I started to walk a lot where I lived, and there was like a walk in the morning, a walk, afternoon, or like before noon or afternoon, and then a walk in the evening, and that was sort of the daily thing I did, and I just walked a lot. And the 7th of June on a Sunday, I walked out to the ocean, and when I saw the ocean, I just walked along the path, sort of a bit up from the sandy area, and the idea, spark of whatever, inspiration, whatever you want to call it, just wham, straight into my head. And the idea of walking from Denmark to Santiago, that was what came to me, and that was the only thing that made me really smile for a month or more. And I was going to meet my parents out there as well, and I shared it with them, and it was like the most natural thing in the world to share with them, that because it just felt so good. It's just like I smiled like yeah, this is, yeah, it was just genuine, really. It was just like, so I listened, and 2 weeks later I just started. I had most of what I needed, so I didn't really, and I could work from my computer, so it was fairly easy to just get going. I had nothing to hold me back, so yeah, I just started. And in the Camino, you start. So I started in Viborg in Denmark, which is the north part of Denmark, and I started there because not because it was near where I lived. Some people, they just walk from where they live. Maybe I could have done that, but it's sort of not a premise, but it's good to start at a cathedral, and you have this pilgrim passport, and then you get a first stamp at the cathedral. So when you end up in Santiago, they can see where you started. So that's where I started, and yeah, been going through Denmark, about 300 kilometers, and through Germany. That was, I don't even know how far that was. Maybe 600-700, maybe 700-800. Then through Belgium and to Paris, because I was not really walking towards Santiago initially, because I was sort of heading west towards Paris. But then after Paris, it was more direct. So I'm just heading into Bordeaux tomorrow. So that will be the last big town in France, and then I'll can really look forward to the real Camino. So.
So you are on today's day 102, is that right?
103.
103, so you've been watching your YouTube videos. 103 today, yeah, you've just finished it. So did you know at the time, did you realize when you had this moment of guidance, I'm going to walk the Camino, did you realize it was going to be a 5-month plus walk?
Yes, I could calculate that really fast, but
it didn't scare you.
No, I mean, the beautiful thing about this walk in particular is that this is a calling. There's something pulling me. There really is. I mean, I don't really know what it is. To be honest, I know that it's probably something good, or whatever. But every day I walk, of course, there's days that it's heavier and it's not as fun, or there's those things. But there's never a day where I'm like, okay, I'm stopping. Or there's never that. There is an energy in me that is just pulling me, and that makes it easy in some ways. That okay, this is what I'm doing.
It's back to that heart-centered focus that's pulling you, right? That emotion that is tugging you there, no matter what.
Yeah, you can definitely call it heart, but it's not. I feel it in my gut more. I feel like it's really. Yeah, it's just. I can't really explain what it is. It's just. Something is pulling me in this direction, and we'll see what it amounts to.
But if we go back to it being a journey rather than the destination, you have learned, you've challenged yourself. You've been in the rain, you've been in the wind, you've changed boots, you've had airbeds that have had punctures, given up on camping. You've had adversity, you've had cheap places to stay, expensive places to stay, places where beds collapse. It's hard. You have to find food every day. You have to carry a backpack. You have to work on where you're going to stay that night. You're still trying to fit in your work when you get there. I mean, there are a lot of kind of practical challenges, plus the walking itself, the no doubt pain in your legs and all the rest. And what does that do to somebody's mind?
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about the Camino, I usually talk about it in the 3 phases of the Camino, or 3 phases of life, where the first phase is the physical, the second is the mental, and the third is the spiritual, or the divine phase, or whatever you want to call that sort of energy phase. And the physical is obviously is always there. Of course, it's challenging every day to walk far, but it's definitely harder in the beginning, and it's also where it's very superficial, the experience. You haven't really gotten into depth about why you're doing this, or what's happening, or the rhythm of things. So it's also where you doubt a lot. You focus on the pain a lot and the distance a lot. You focus on the destinations a lot. You focus on the things that may be more connected to the ego in some sense, maybe, because it is kind of superficial. But that opens up for the mental phase. That's where the that can last all your life, the mental one. But that's where you go into more depth about who you are, your thoughts, thinking, your past, family, friends, all the things that are sort of it's been a part of your life. And I think that's an ongoing thing, although the more in depth you go when you walk, the more you also begin to appreciate things, because you begin to let go as well. The body, mind, and spirit. The reason why I think the walking is so magical is that body, mind, and spirit comes together, or the physical, the mental, and the divine, or whatever spiritual comes together. So every day you are in process, and every day you're processing. And I can relate to when I was in India. I was doing Ayurveda for a month. So Ayurvedic treatments, which is oil and massage and drops in different places. And the reason why is that it begins to activate the body and process. So the body just starts this process. And I can't really explain it because I'm not an Ayurvedic doctor, but of course I experienced that the body just starts this washing out process of all these layers that you have that is not yours, but whatever. And I can relate it a bit to this. It's kind of the same experience that you're just constantly in process, it makes you to go through. You can't really, when you walk far, you cannot escape going in and face yourself. I think that's the beauty of it. It's impossible to walk far and not face yourself, and face your darkness, and face the things you have suppressed or whatever. And that means that it comes out some way or another. The first 2 months, I had a really hard time. I was thinking about my ex a lot, because I felt like she was a coward. I felt like she was not facing me, looking me in my face, and we could just talk things out. So I was very angry because there was something left. That I just have to deal with that. She can't deal with it with me, So I was very, very angry about that. And sometimes it really came out. I was just furious. I could yell and scream, and I had these walking sticks that I just would throw around and kill as much, plants that I could, So there's just some times where those very, a bit nasty, dark, whatever things just comes up, because they need to come through you somehow. And especially with me, I think that I've been very good at suppressing my anger. I've been very angry in my life, and because I'm very sensitive, but I've also been very unexpressive about those things, which means that I haven't really allowed myself to feel things or feel stuff. So I've suppressed it more than being honest about what I felt. So my point is just that the beauty of walking is just that you're in process all the time, and it makes you let go of things more and more, and
And how effectively do you feel you've been able to let go? You're 3.5 months in now.
I think letting go is sometimes a bit empty word. It's a bit, or maybe not empty, but it's sort of like it doesn't really explain. And I think, and there's processes. The first 2 months were really tough in the sense with the relationship stuff with her. The first 2 months filled up a lot of time with that, and then later on it became more like the situation in the world right now, where that was more the focus, I think. And now I'm definitely feeling that I'm more like, okay, of course this is my life, and I've felt that for a while, but I'm also realizing that I need to take something serious in the sense of, okay, my mom and dad, they've been the closest to me throughout my life. But I also realized that I need space. I need space. I need to realize that this is my journey. I'm doing this for me. And it's not because I don't like my parents, and it's not because I don't like people, because but it's just that when you have had these things with them, that has been very tough, and I begin to realize that the codependence and the things I've had with relationships has started with them, so I'm also realizing that I really need to just take care of myself and be sure that I'm respecting myself, and not just having to. I don't feel like I need to share things with them just because I need to. It's a habit, and because I need to really feel that I'm doing it for me, and not doing it out of the old pattern of not being good enough or being afraid of whatever. And I know it's not because of that. I know it's not why they want to talk to me, but I don't want that energy in me anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very.
So I want to just really, yeah.
I was just going to say, so understandable, and people who have been through the same would potentially be able to relate to what you just said. And I think sometimes what happens as we become more conscious, sometimes we actually become quieter, because we don't feel the need to, because we're not seeking approval, we don't feel the need to have to speak for the sake of speaking or share for the sake of sharing. We kind of just a little bit happier within ourselves, and it makes us better listeners as well.
Yeah. I mean, one of the, just to throw that out there, I think one of the other beautiful things about walking is that because you are walking, you always arrive. And I realized that when you look up and you, after 15 days and 30 days, and realize, wow, I've been many places, or 40 days and 100 days, but I always feel like I have arrived. I always feel like I am here. And when you compare that to traveling with a plane or a car, sometimes, especially with a plane, if you fly from the US to Europe, or any long distance flight, sometimes it often takes like a few days or maybe up to a week to really, I'm here now, because it's very unnatural or unhealthy to travel this far, this fast. And I think that also makes you sort of present to the fact of what you need to deal with. Yeah.
So two things come to mind from what you just said then. One is the idea of it being grounding, that you do arrive at the end of every day. So you may be on a 20 to 30k walk, and you may be kind of, up in the clouds or thrashing sticks and getting angry, being in touch with your emotions, you're on your own and all the rest of it. But the fact that you do arrive sounds like it helps to ground you.
Yeah, because you can't, I've been very impatient in my life, and I think many are, in terms of, okay, I want to get to this, I want to create this, I want to do this, and we're impatient about the manifestation period of when that actually happens. And one of my motivations, and one of the things I really look forward to, is to, and you can say, yeah, don't look, it's a journey and all that stuff, but a motivation is also that when I'm in the Finisterre, when I'm finished this, the whole experience of having taken that many steps, when I'm done, I've probably taken 5 million steps in 6 months. And when you realize that how many steps that is, then you begin to put that into perspective of when you start anything, then you know that you have to take all the steps to arrive. You have to take all the steps to arrive. If you want to skip any steps, you want to take a shortcut, and not take the steps. You can take, sometimes I'm taking shortcuts in terms of maybe walking along the highway because it's more direct. But I'm still taking the steps towards the finish line. I'm not taking a car. I'm not taking, I'm walking. And I think for myself, that is a hugely important thing to learn. But also, whenever I start anything from after this, I know that I need to take all the steps to have this project or whatever it is arrive. And I think that's a really beautiful thing about this experience, but also like the whole idea of that I'm really having that ingrained in me now. That if I need to arrive and feel like I have arrived, I need to take all the steps. Otherwise, I'll feel I cheated, or I was impatient, or
It's so, yeah, and that metaphor was beautiful because it really, I felt tingles when you said, you get somewhere too fast. And you said, it's not natural to go that fast when you're talking about the aeroplane. And now you've just expanded on exactly that point, in that if we think about growing as individuals, if we think about traveling our journey, be it our journey through consciousness, our understanding who we are, our journey in life, it's not natural. You can't just click your fingers and be there. You have to go through the processes. And like you said, you have to take each of the steps. So what a phenomenal metaphor of the fact that you are taking those physical steps at the same time as you learn about who you are.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things I will keep coming back to when I talk about this. Also because I have been very impatient. I've been trying to skip everything to get to wherever, that's probably part of the calling, I guess, to really just understand that you can't skip anything. You need to take every single step to fulfill whatever it is. So.
Fantastic. And it may well be that you don't have some sudden mind-blowing realization when you get.
I won't. I already know that.
Yeah, but it's the journey, because you are learning so much about yourself, about other things, about the world, about how you think, about your connection, about your ability to ground. You are learning so much, in your wisdom. It's like the feeling I always get about you is, you have this massive ball of wisdom, and you're allowing it to finally come through you, to be able to verbalize it, to be able to feel it, which will make you into the incredible teacher that you will become if you're not there yet. So.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I've actually felt like, a lot of people, they take educations, a lot of people they have a skill, and I think even though I have maybe a lot of skills or whatever, I haven't really felt. There's definitely been a void of confidence. There's been some things I've been confident in, but the last years I've also felt very insecure and just confused about And then when I started things, when I I started DJing, for example, when I got back from New Zealand in 2016, and a year and a half later, I played for a crowd of 1,000 people in one of the most popular clubs in Bern, Switzerland. And after that, it was like, who cares? It was not fulfilling for me, or it was not enough for me, or whatever. So sometimes I just started things, I became good at it fast, and then had a success experience, and then whatever. So I think this experience is also so long and so important that I'm getting a skill in terms of some wisdom, some foundation, something that I can live off of and from myself. But
and then share with others.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I can't wait to do that more and more. So
we are already sharing, because we're out. So we'll talk for hours, you and I. You are sharing every single day. If people go to your YouTube channel and they look up Gideon Nielsen, spelled Nielsen. So Journey Navigator, right, is the logo that's on there. So Gideon Nielsen, and pretty much every day he will upload a video, somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes typically. Lots of selfies. He talks into the camera, shows you his journey, so you can go on the final journey of the Camino with Gideon and make it to Finistrata. And so champion him, subscribe to his channel, send him messages, encourage him, give him strength, keep him going. You can also find him, of course, on Facebook, Gideon's Journey. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, as you said, we could probably talk for a little longer. But
and we will talk again when you make it to the end.
Okay.
When you make it to the end of the world, we will be talking again. But if I don't find my way to join you to walk before that point. So thank you so much for your time today, and for the lessons and the inspiration that you've given people to show them how they can be free, how life can be fun, and how they can definitely be fearless, for sure. So what an inspiration. Definitely an old soul, and my friend, an old soul. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. I am Dr. Rana Al-Falaki. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so we can let you know when we have more of these episodes, and you can also follow the audio podcast on Anchor as well. But for now, be free, be fun, be fearless.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Boss Ladies Mindset channel powered by Crown for Success. Please tune in next week for another episode, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram at RVP Queens, at The Girl Gang Confidential, at Crown for Success, at Strong Women Are Beautiful, and of course at Boss Ladies Mindset.